Good morning and welcome to today's press conference. We're excited that we have Governor Mike DeWine here today in Springfield, Ohio to announce another great initiative and partnership between the state of Ohio and its communities. First, I want to provide some acknowledgement of some of our state and local elected officials. We have State Senator Bob Hackett, State Representative Kyle Kaler, Mayor Warren Copeland, Assistant Mayor Rob Rue, and we have our Community Police Advisory Team Chair, James Bacon, with us today. One of the great things about Governor DeWine and his administration has been the partnership and collaboration that they've shared with local Ohio communities. They have stepped up whenever we have needed them. They have risen to the call, and we're so fortunate and we're so blessed as a community that we have Governor DeWine standing there beside us as we work through our problems. The only way we move forward together as communities is through collaboration and partnership. And Governor DeWine's administration, along with the city of Springfield, have exhibited that partnership time and time again as we look to meet the challenges and rise to those challenges to move our community forward. I'm honored to introduce Governor Mike DeWine.
Very much appreciate it. Well, I want to thank the city manager, Heck, for that introduction. About a year ago, or a little over a year ago, I had the opportunity to ride with some of the officers here in Springfield. And Andy Wilson, former county prosecuting attorney, certainly keeps me, who works with us and has worked for me for a number of years now, certainly keeps me informed as what is going on in Clark County, as my daughter does as well, who's an assistant county prosecuting attorney, her daughter Alice. I'm here today to announce round 3 of the anti-violent crime grant. And this is grants that were approved by the General Assembly. I want to thank Representative Kaler and Senator Hackett for their work in regard to that. I appreciate that very, very, very much. So today we're announcing 16 new grants and a total of $3.9 million for the violent crime reduction grants. This is part of a $58 million grants that we are in the process of announcing. But the legislature, at my request, has also approved really a total of close to $200 million that will be going out over the next few months. This money is targeted primarily at violent crime, and it relies on our basic philosophy that local law enforcement, local chiefs, local sheriffs, local mayors should be making the decisions for their community about specifically how this money gets spent. We have in this state over 900 law enforcement agencies. They have unique challenges, unique problems. To keep it local, what Jamestown, Ohio, what they face is different from what Springfield faces, and we could just go on and on. So we rely on the local community to make the decisions about how to spend the money. But this decision that I made asked the legislature for the money. The legislature gave us the money. Again, it's close to $200 million by the time we're going to be done. That's already been approved. This is part of our overall effort to deal with the violent crime problem that we are seeing. So today I am announcing a grant to Springfield of $305,000, and that's rounding it off, but I'll give you the exact numbers. It's $305,206.94. So I'm not sure where that 94 cents, Mayor, is going to go, but I'm sure you guys can figure out how to spend that. So we're very, very proud to make that grant today. We'll be releasing, for the news media, we'll be releasing the other grants within the next hour for the rest of the state. This is the third round, and we have more rounds to go. Let me talk for a moment about the big picture in regard to violent crime. We have been focused, very understandably, about the great tragedy that has occurred with school children being shot in their school. And I'll have more this week to talk about that as we go forward, and additional things that we can be doing and should be doing. It is an immense tragedy, and no one can, I just can't envision what the families are going through and have gone through who've lost children, little children in schools. And we have to do everything we can to take care of that problem and to make our schools safer and our children safer. At the same time that we've seen those tragedies, the truth is that every weekend in Ohio, sometimes every day in Ohio, every weekend in cities across this state, we are seeing young people who are getting shot. Sometimes it's a 6-year-old who is in a car, wrong place, wrong time. Someone goes by and shoots towards the car. Sometimes it's in their own home. We saw this weekend, a few days ago, in our state capitol, around the State House, a 16-year-old shot. And we've seen example after example of that. So that violent crime is going on, and I'm going to leave it to the chief and the county prosecutor, to talk about really that what they're seeing here in Springfield. But Springfield is not immune to it. We're seeing a significant amount of shootings, significant amount of crime. We have been working with the Springfield Police Department as well as with the Sheriff's Office to help in regard to that. One of the things that Springfield has been doing is really stepped up in regard to NIBIN, which is basically a program that we announced expanding that program statewide, but the whole idea behind that is to make matches on guns. Gun used in one offense, maybe a gun used in a second offense, and targeting the violent offenders. The truth is that the vast majority of crime, violent crime, the vast majority of crime in this state is committed by repeat violent offenders. We have to go after them, we have to arrest them, we have to prosecute them, and we have to lock them up for a long, long time. I have pending before the legislature, in fact, it is Representative Taylor's bill that we hope that the state legislature will act upon this year before the year ends, that focuses on violent offenders, someone who has committed violent offense. Person is found in possession of a firearm. The judges need a bigger club to go after those individuals, and Representative Taylor has a bill that will do that, and I'm very proud to have worked with him on that, proud that he's doing it, and I would expect that to pass by the end of this year. Let me also talk for a moment about something else that we're doing with the Springfield Police Department. It has to do with what we call ONEC, which is the Ohio Narcotics Intelligence Working Group, and they provide help to local law enforcement to, again, track down violent repeat offenders, be able to help them make cases better. So let me just also mention a statistic, and again, the chief may and the prosecutor may talk a little bit more in regard to that, but it's my understanding in the first 5 months of this year, the city of Springfield has had 500 incidents where shots have been fired or they've had calls in regard to weapons. 500 in a 5-month period of time. That is a very, very scary thing. And again, as I said, Chief Graff, Prosecutor Driscoll may want to talk a little bit more about that. So I'm going to turn it over to the chief, and we'll go on from there, and then we'll be happy to answer questions at the end. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Governor. As the governor said, all throughout America, it's not just Ohio, it's not just Springfield, but throughout America in the last several years, we've seen a dramatic rise in gun violence in our communities. From 2019 to 2020, that seems to be the break year where we started to see this dramatic increase throughout our nation. Shots fired incidents in Springfield nearly doubled from 2019 to 2020 and stayed stable in that high range in 2021, and we're continuing to see violence this year. This year we've experienced 3 homicides in our community, and every one of those through gun violence. In the last homicide that we had, a tragic and senseless death of a young lady who was caught in a fusillade of gunfire in which 4 other persons were injured as well. The women and men of this police division, as the governor mentioned, they're working tirelessly on these cases. And as a community, we need to do everything that we can to stop this violence. The governor has emphasized time and again that one of the key elements of supporting law enforcement is giving them the tools that they need to combat violence and make their communities safer. And this grant award represents the governor's beliefs put into action. This grant will be used to enhance the Springfield Police Division's technological capabilities to respond more effectively to criminal activity in our community. With this grant in place, we will be acquiring over 40 surveillance cameras of different types and capabilities, all of which are going to be deployed to combat violent crime and criminal activity in our neighborhoods. Anyone who owns a doorbell camera, anyone who has a surveillance system outside of their home or inside, as well as their businesses, knows the value of those devices. Where a picture, as they say, can paint 1,000 words, a video can fill a novel. And we have a video, an example to kind of show you how these videos can relate to, first of all, demonstrating what we're seeing in our streets, but also giving our investigators and our officers vital information and clues to solving crime. This particular video is captured in a shooting incident that occurred in our community in early May. Yeah. As hard as that is for probably many of you to watch that, I've seen it over a dozen times, and it doesn't get any easier. And that's just a microcosm of what we're seeing throughout Ohio and our nation. For law enforcement, videos and pictures give us the how and oftentimes the why of an incident, of what occurred and how it occurred. Even when a camera doesn't capture the crime itself, and what you're seeing there is less common, it can show us who's leaving the area. It can lock in a time that can be critical to investigators. It can capture invaluable audio, etc., on and on. Detectives and officers have often relied on citizens' home and business camera systems to help them with investigations. And we will continue to do that. But we want to add an extra layer of protection and security to our neighborhoods to contribute our side of that. This grant allows us to do just that. There's nothing more powerful than combating crime than citizens and their law enforcement officers working together. This grant initiative allows us to advance that effort. I want to thank the members of the SPD staff, Springfield Police Division staff, as well as city staff for their hard work in putting our grant request together. And I want to thank the governor and his staff and administration for the deployment and the development and fast processing of that grant program that allows us to bring relief to our communities as quickly as possible. With that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Clark County Prosecutor Dan Driscoll.
First, want to take a moment and thank Chief Graff for his efforts in putting this together, putting this grant together. I'd also be remiss if I didn't take this moment to thank all the members of law enforcement in Clark County. You truly are my heroes. Each day you go out and selflessly serve the people of this community, and I thank you for that very much. For prosecutors, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt, and that standard has not changed for many, many years. But what the public expects, what the public perception of beyond a reasonable doubt has changed. The job of proving someone guilty has become more and more difficult. As the public has become more sophisticated, more distrusting, they need more. And this grant and these pieces of equipment will help us to give that to him. As a prosecutor, our job is to tell the story of the victim, tell how they were injured, how they were hurt, explain why the person who did this is guilty. And at times that becomes very difficult. When we don't have cooperation from the community, when we don't have the necessary evidence that we need, sometimes we have to sit down and have that very uncomfortable talk where we tell a mother, a father, that we can't proceed on a case because there's just not enough evidence. There is nothing harder, I promise you. The governor, because he sat in my seat, knows that issue. And he has repeatedly taken steps to help prosecutors and to help law enforcement. The gun violence that we've seen in the last several years has changed. It's fundamentally different. We're seeing younger shooters, children with guns. We're seeing more shooting. I would like to tell you that what we saw in that video is a one-off, but it's not. That is the regularity that Springfield Police Division officers are facing in the streets today. Day in and day out, we're called to shots fired calls, and we're seeing multiple guns used. We're seeing large capacity magazines. We're seeing many, many bullets fired. The increase in tech will help. It absolutely will. It will give us extra parts of those stories that we need to tell the victim's story. It will fill in those blanks, and we need that, and I appreciate that. The other thing that we need is cooperation from the public. All the tech that we have cannot solve a crime if people aren't willing to come forward and aren't willing to talk to us. But this helps fill in their stories as well. It verifies that what they tell us is the truth. And so these instruments that the Springfield Police Division have will be incredibly useful in the prosecution of these most dangerous and violent felons. I want to thank the governor for his expansion of NIBINs and ONIC, and thank the folks from ONIC who are here for all their help that they've given the Springfield community and the Clark County community with their work. It's making a difference, and we appreciate it. Lastly, I want to thank Representative Kaler for his bill. It will make a difference, and I encourage folks to contact their state rep and to ask that this bill be moved forward. I thank you for your time. I'll turn things back over to the governor and open it up to any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Any questions for any of us?
Understand what's happening on the ground here. Sources here in Springfield tell me that kids are getting these guns on Facebook Marketplace. They're being sold at gas stations. I've spoken with people on both sides of the aisle that are very concerned about Senate Bill 215. Will you do anything to prevent it going into effect on June 12th? Will you use your executive power to do so in any way, shape, or form?
215 is which one? I got. Look, this bill has been passed by the General Assembly, an overwhelming vote, and I signed it into law, and it's going to go into effect. You know, the problems that we've talked about don't arise from that particular bill. The problems that we are seeing, you know, are violent offenders who continue to be out among us, and they need to be locked up. It also, you know, again, is young people, as prosecutors pointed out, the chiefs pointed out, this age is getting younger and younger and younger. So, you know, we should not be, we can debate that bill, and we can talk about it, and people can have reasonable differences of opinion. But the reality is, you know, we need to go and do the things that we know every single day that will make a difference, and things that we can get them done. And these are things that, all the things we've laid out today are all things that we can do. Who else?
Also love law enforcement here to weigh in on, do you think Senate Bill 215 will exacerbate this gun violence issue?
As the governor said, Senate Bill 215 doesn't change the scenario that you gave to begin with, of the illegal sale of a handgun or any type of firearm to a child or to someone who's under disability or a straw purchase or anything like that. The bill essentially changes people's ability, instead of having to go out and get a concealed carry permit, that they can carry essentially constitutionally as long as they're not under a disability that would prevent them from having a firearm. So in that sense, to answer your question, it's not really putting new laws on the books or taking any off the books as far as us dealing with people who are carrying weapons illegally and using weapons illegally. As for the future of any of that, I can't predict that. Like anything, we'll monitor it and we'll watch it. And if we see anything that seems to be a problem, we will certainly contact the governor's office and let them know so they're aware of it.
Look, this bill is not going to impact what a criminal does. They were doing the same thing before. They will continue to do the same thing now. You know, they were not paying any attention to any laws anyway, one way or the other. They were carrying them. They were doing whatever they were doing. So, I mean, you know, we can debate this bill, and reasonable people can be on either side of this bill, and they are. And I understand that. But let's not be diverted and think that, you know, this bill is going to change the conduct of criminals. Criminals do what they want to do anyway, and they're doing it. Now, the question is how you get the criminals locked up and off the street.
Chief Graff, let me ask you, with rare exception, when there is an instance of violent crime in this city and we ask to talk to you on camera, you decline that request. So let me ask you, in this setting, what is the Springfield Police Division doing to reduce violent and also gun crime in this community?
Well, I think we've already talked about it. The investigators are working constantly on open cases to close them. Our officers are responding to calls every day and patrolling our community and our neighborhoods. As to your question on whether or not we're going to go out and talk about an active case and possibly jeopardize that case by doing that, the only value in that is to put out information that would jeopardize what the investigators are trying to do, what our prosecutors are trying to do. We have addressed the community through our own social media on certain topics, but they're lengthy topics that we realize the media can't condense down to a time frame that works for them. So that's the best answer I have for your question.
You mentioned homicide on Clifton Avenue where the young woman tragically lost her life. I believe that was on May 1st. Has Springfield Police identified any suspects or made any arrests?
An open investigation that I'm not going to comment on. We're working it. Trust me.
Chief Graff, let me ask you, with rare exception, when there is an instance of violent crime in this city and we ask to talk to you on camera, you decline that request. So let me ask you, in this setting, what is the Springfield Police Division doing to reduce violent and also gun crime in this community?
Well, I think we've already talked about it. The
do that the city is getting as part of this grant?
As I discussed, it's going to allow us the ability, just like as you see from here, to be able to capture video evidence when we're dealing with criminal activity in areas. Whether it sees a car driving off and allowing detectives to have an idea who was going in and out of that area. Whether it captures a crime like you see here on camera. Whether it sets a time to when something occurred from audio of gunshots or cars peeling out or even an argument down the street out of range of the camera. It's the same thing that home and business videos have been doing, but these are very high definition cameras. They're mobile, which allows us to move them in the community to deal with waves of crime, or what we call hotspot policing. It will allow us to be more mobile and effective and efficient in trying to protect our neighborhoods.
What the method is where they will be placed around the city and moved to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll use best practices, and we will also rely on our other partners in law enforcement who have used some of these systems to see what they're doing and what works with them. And we'll be in consultation with our community police advisory team as well to make sure the community's advised of what we're doing. We're obviously not going to talk about everything we do with everything, right? Because we're not trying to tip our hand and give criminal element out there the upper hand in trying to defeat our systems and trying to hurt our citizens. But we certainly will be open and transparent about what we're doing with this technology.
If I could, at this point, ask Detective Jordan to come up. And I've worked with him for quite some time, talking with him, just to get a feel for what's going on, as well as with the chief. And he can't talk about any open case. I don't want him to talk about any open case. But maybe just give us, Detective, a little flavor of what you're seeing out there on the streets, because I think, again, it might answer some of the questions that you all have asked. Detective?
Thank you.
Just kind of broad what you're
Yes,
seeing.
sir. First of all, thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to stand here in front of you and explain to you what we're seeing on the streets with local law enforcement here in Springfield, not only in the city of Springfield, but other law enforcement officers throughout the state, Columbus, Dayton. We talk to those guys pretty regularly. As they have mentioned here, we have seen an increase in gun violence over the last couple of years. We have seen a huge increase in young offenders carrying firearms. For instance, I've had cases, kids as young as 13 and 14 years old being armed on our city streets and shooting up people's homes. I think it's a problem for each and every one of us, and it's something that we here at the Springfield Police are working tirelessly to try to stop on a daily basis. The large majority of the members within this community in the city of Springfield do what they're supposed to do on a daily basis, and we don't have problems with those individuals. The problem is with so many people and so many issues today, especially young people, out shooting at one another over disagreements. I'm recently investigating a shooting that just occurred last week where two individuals were upset with each other over a dispute over a girl, and that's led to an individual being shot and homes being shot as a result of their anger towards each other over something that could be resolved or just avoided. But unfortunately, that's where we're at today, and that's what we're seeing on a daily basis. Our law enforcement officers are answering these calls every day, and we need more support from our community and the people that care about our community to try to help end this nonsense.
Anybody else?
sir.
Anything?
Local law enforcement agencies can really decide how they're gonna best use these funds, but $58 million, that's a lot of money. So, you as governor, are you gonna kind of allocate some to task forces so they can work on, being able to find,
Yeah.
perpetrators such as like human trafficking, and then also oversee where some of these funds are going?
Yeah, look, we've all already targeted additional funds for our task forces. Since I became governor, we've significantly increased the number of task forces. We've increased the amount of money going to different task forces. Our emphasis is on violent crime. It's on all crime, but where we're really targeting it is violent crime. And, we're seeing our cities becoming shooting galleries. And people have a right, when they live in a neighborhood, they have a right to be free of that kind of criminal activity. And so that's what we're focused on. We're focused on communities, we're focused on neighborhoods where this violent crime has made it intolerable and very, very difficult to live. People should not have to put up with that. And so that's where the targeting is. This is an unprecedented amount of money, close to $200 million, that will be going out over the next few months. Now, that's not the only thing, that we need to do. We have, for example, taken the problem with warrants, where 90% of warrants were not getting into the national database, and someone could be in Springfield, Ohio, and then not too distant be in Indiana, and try to buy a gun, and the person who was selling the gun would have no idea that they had a warrant out for them in Ohio. We are fixing that. We have now 90% of them are in. We have a bill pending in front of the legislature to make it automatic that everybody for violent crimes over a certain level, that everybody would have to put that into the database. And again, we'd ask the General Assembly to pass that bill as well. So we stood up ONEC. ONEC is there to give the technical assistance that local law enforcement needs. We've dramatically increased NIBIN, again, giving law enforcement the opportunity to get the data into the database. So these are all things that the state can do. We are a local government state, over 900 law enforcement agencies. We don't want to tell them what to do. We don't intend to tell them what to do. But what we can do is give them technical assistance that they need, and we can give them money that they can target to do the things that they can't do because of a lack of resources. And those are the things that we are doing. This is vitally important to the future of this state and for us to be able to move forward. One of the things that I talk a lot about is our goal for every Ohio citizen to be able to live up to their God-given potential. You can't live up to your full potential if the place where you live is a shooting gallery and where guns are being shot all the time, and you worry about your kids being out on the street. That's wrong. These people have a right to live in their neighborhoods and live in peace.
What do you see is the reason for this lawlessness? I mean, is it economics? Is it the availability of guns? What is it?
Look, I'm not a sociologist, and your guess is just as good, it may be if not better than mine. We are seeing these things. What I can tell you is that while we've seen an increase in the amount of shooting that's taking place, the basic fact remains that it is a small number of the criminal element that is committing most of the violent crime. That was true when I was a county prosecutor a number of decades ago, and it's true today. We did a study when I was the Attorney General. We went back to mid-1970s, looked at all the felonies, convictions in the state, looked at the violent ones, and what we found is, in regard to violent offenses, that the vast, vast majority of them were committed by a small number of the criminals. So targeting the violent criminals is the way we deal with this problem. Thank you all very much.